The first strike wasn't the knockout, it was the opening act. After FPVs tore into fuel and command vehicles, a concealed sight gave a green light. 22 Thor 9s launched without formation and without waiting for humans. Each payload was pre-configured. Engine disruption, armor penetration, fuel ignition, designed to create cascading failures across the column. If you've ever wondered how autonomy survives smoke, EW, and chaos, watch how randomized trajectories and satellite windows stitched a corridor of fire nearly a mile long and left forward posts effectively blind. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. The last burst of coordinates felt like a door slamming shut and another opening at the same time. A recon bird coughed out one final grid and went dark. And that was the cue. Not to slow down, not to wait for a clearer picture, but to let autonomy take weight. Why? Because the window to hit a moving column is measured in seconds, not comfort. Every delay gives drivers time to swerve, gunners time to orient, and air defenses time to guess your rhythm. Handing off to code keeps rhythm hidden and timing ruthless. At 4:13 a.m., a Switchblade 320 fell out of the sky and the live feed ended. Inside an M13, the plan didn't. Crews had already pre-armed 24 Gamma-5 FPVs, each with a fixed target list and a slice of a 19-mile corridor to cover. Think of it like rolling out a paint strip across asphalt. Each drone owned a lane segment, a depth, and a time-on-target window. Operators checked health flags, synced clocks, and held fire until the corridor matched the last recon pass. Then they let the stack breathe on its own. Conditions argued against any thumb on the stick. Smoke drifted low and thick, frost-glazed culverts and tree lines, and an active 9M317 envelope forced every aircraft to hug the ground. Electronic warfare hit like a heartbeat. Clean signal, then a spike, then dead space. You can't thread a needle when the lights flicker. Man-in-the-loop control turned sloppy in those gaps. So the drones flew the land more than the link, riding terrain following radar and IR seekers that clawed for hot metal and moving exhaust instead of perfect video. The first wave proved the logic. FPVs skimmed ditch lines and hedges, climbed only to cross culverts, and hunted for the two things that halt a convoy: fuel supply and command vehicles. One drone chewed into a tanker's rear axle. Another dug into a command truck's hood where the radios lived. Engines coughed, headlights swayed. The column didn't stop, but it sagged. Leaders lost clean voice nets and switched to backup handsets. That hesitation bought the next drone 10 seconds, and then another. With feeds degrading, confidence came from data that didn't care about smoke. Telemetry from the FPVs and a time-linked satellite window painted a heat corridor the size of a small-town algorithm stitched that pattern into a moving map. So even when a drone's camera turned to gray mush, its guidance saw the convoy's warmth like a rope in the dark. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to keep noses pointed at engines, axles, and tank seams. Treat the line of vehicles like a power grid and you get the logic. You don't chase every bulb. You knock out substations and watch neighborhoods fade. Fuel trucks were the substations. So were C2 nodes, the vans and trucks that held the antennas and the officers. A single skipped strike can undo a whole sequence under jamming. So the AI respected priorities and randomized ingress. No drone repeated an altitude ladder or a crossing point if it could avoid it. That denied radar the pattern it craves. Momentum cracked. Uplinks frayed. The question stopped being, can we steer every nose cone, and became, can the network finish without us? The answer hinged on tempo. Humans pause, confirm. Talk, algorithms don't. They preserve the schedule, squeeze gaps, and hit when the map says hit. That's why the green signal from the concealed site mattered. It didn't just call up a follow-on wave. It turned the fight over to code and probability, and let the corridor burn on timing alone. They didn't fly as a flock. They flew like noise. 22 Thor 9s lifted on staggered timers from a concealed site across the border and split in every direction that radar hates weight just over 5 pounds. Thermal trackers live, shaped charges armed. Each one had a job baked in before launch. Stall engines, punch-through plating, light fuel. The early FPV hits had bent the Convoy's spine, and the handoff to autonomy pushed where it hurt most. Air defenses searched for a pattern and found none. No formation to bracket. No repeat altitude to cue a missile shot. Thor 9s used corkscrew paths and desynced climbs that smeared returns into clutter operators on the ground, saw blips swell and fade like weather. By the time a fire control crew settled on a track, the drone had shifted speed, traded height, or tucked behind ridge lines. Every change drew a wasted missile or a late burst of cannon fire, and the next drone slipped through the gap. The first decisive window opened in under 3 minutes. One drone hit the lead fuel truck low, right near the sump. Diesel sprayed, misted, and then flashed as a thermobaric-style effect turned vapor into overpressure. The shock flattened saplings and punched a hot pulse down the road. Another drone took a PL/Z06 self-propelled unit on its weak arc, cutting through with a penetrator designed for engine blocks. The result wasn't just a dead vehicle. Fragment and heat ruptured hydraulics and jammed traverse. A third drone bored into a comms truck and blew the mast's feed, shorting the uplink that kept the sector stitched together. Each hit layered on the last, and drivers started to brake without orders. Payload pairing did the rest. Thermobaric effects near fuel and hydraulic bays produce long, hungry flames and pressure waves that slip into seams. EFP and heat charges crush engine hearts, locking crankshafts and starving pumps. Fragmentation tuned for antennas, shreds, cables, and reflectors without wasting energy on armor. When those tools land where they belong, you don't need a massive warhead. You need timing and the right physics in the right place. Overhead data backed what the ground felt. A satellite pass showed a burn corridor stretching close to a mile, with thermal peaks in several pockets hitting between 1,360 and 1,460 degrees Fahrenheit. In one zone, the heat plume centered on a crater around 12 meters wide. That wasn't a single burn. It was overlapping events, each feeding the next, as tanks bled, engines roasted, and munitions cooked off. Cascades started for simple reasons. Fuel mist met hot manifolds. Ruptured tanks dripped into wheel wells. Ammo stored too close to engine bays began to vent, then detonated. The 7th drone found an ammunition trailer, and the blast lifted soil and roots, throwing a pulse you could feel in your chest. Thermal readings spiked to the top of the window. The air itself seemed to wobble. Support took hits next. One drone went under a water truck and turned it into shrapnel that peppered nearby carriers. Another dove into a maintenance truck storage bay and set off toolkits, oils, and spares. No one came to fix anything after that. By 4:28 a.m., 6 of 9 PLZ-06 units were down, a 7th barely mobile, and smoke hid the rest. The sector's C2 link died. Forward posts lost guidance, then lost nerve. The defense never found a rhythm. Random trajectories soaked up their attention while algorithmic targeting kept striking engines, fuel, and antennas until the column's will to move slipped away. By sunrise, autonomy had done what a volley of big missiles would do at a fraction of the cost. Steal the convoy's day and gift the battlefield a delay that ripples into planning, scheduling, and supply. The decisive weapon wasn't a single airframe. It was the quiet handoff to algorithms that kept tempo when feeds cut, radar hunted, and crews hesitated. Autonomy stitched telemetry and heat windows into a firing schedule that didn't blink, turning a corridor into a system that punished engines, fuel, and antennas on time. If you want deeper breakdowns of autonomous tactics and the sensor windows that make them lethal, subscribe. By sunrise, the convoy didn't just lose trucks. It lost hours, orders, and nerve to a network that learned through smoke and silence, and kept pressing while humans fell behind the loop.